Following the correct procedure, turn off the power to the machine. Remove any adapters and specimen holders fitted to the machine. In order to fit the ball and rod adapter, first the torque reaction arm will need to be moved from the standard position, as it is not required. Working on the top plate of the machine, with the guard removed, loosen the two securing screws while holding the bracket. Move the bracket to the rear set of mounting holes and secure in place. The bracket should be at an angle to the test area and away from the crossbeam. Place the lower bearing carrier on the crossbeam. Ensure that the dowel is engaged with the holes on the lower bearing support. Fit the collet assembly to the shaft using the retaining pin. Secure the pin using the R-clip. Fit the collet into the shaft with the split end into the shaft. Fit the nut finger tight. Fit the reaction beam. This will require 2 people. Fit the main part of the reaction beam to the back of the column shafts. Secure the clamps. At this point, the reaction arm should be mounted as far up as possible. Next, fit the test balls into the peak cage. Then place the cage into the bearing race fitted in the bearing housing. Fit the test rod through the ball cage. Push the test rod through the ball cage. Push the rod down until it is fully engaged and touch the bottom of the bearing carrier. Lift the rod up to ensure that it is not in contact with the bottom of the bearing carrier. At this point, the rod can be set to different heights to run multiple tests on one specimen rod. Place the upper bearing holder in position. Lift up the crossbeam. Guide the rod into the collet while raising the crossbeam. Ensure that the test rod is engaged in the collet. The rod will be stopped by the collet locking pin. This ensures that the assembly is in the correct position. Secure the crossbeam with the column clamps. Connect the lubricant drain pipe T92LS to the larger lower outlet. Connect the lubricant supply to the smaller upper outlet. Loosen the reaction beam and lower it down so that it is resting on the bearing housing. Secure the reaction beam. Loosen one of the column clamps and insert the 0.5mm slip gauge. Secure the column clamp and remove the slip gauge. Loosen the second column clamp while supporting the crossbeam and lower the crossbeam onto the other column clamp. Tighten the second column clamp. This ensures that no preload is applied to the test specimens. Using the C spanner and the modified spanner, tighten the collet nut. Finally, fit the desired load actuator. Connect the load cell and air cables. Once the adapter is fitted, in Compend, select File and Load Setup. Choose either of the T92LS configuration files, depending on the load required and the load actuator fitted. Make sure the machine is active. The blue reset switch is illuminated on the cabinet, and check that the load actuator in Compend is enabled. Check that the load configuration is set to axial. If necessary, toggle the switch on the back of the control cabinet. At this point, you may wish to open a graph by selecting Graph and Create Graph. Select Test Sequence and Open to open the ball on rod test procedure. In the control window, select the Data File menu and Open Data File. Select an existing file or create a new file and click on Open. Before starting the test, ensure the peristaltic pump switch is in the on position. Note that the pump power is turned on during the test sequence. At this stage, you can set the vibration sensor to its minimum sensitivity if running a test with different conditions. Click on Start. In the variable table, enter a preload and test load value as well as the speed value, then click on OK. Enter the required header data. The test will start first by applying a preload and turning on the power to the peristaltic pump. Adjust the pump speed if required by turning the speed dial on the front of the pump. The machine will then ramp the speed to the test speed and the load to the test load. Once the running conditions have been met, a message is displayed prompting to adjust the vibration sensor. If required, adjust the sensor by slowly turning the knob clockwise until the vibration light starts flashing, then back the dial off one full turn. In the test sequence, click Resume. The test will run until the vibration sensor is triggered. After this, the test will automatically stop. You can then note the total cycle count on the screen or open the data file in Excel to check the value. Once the test is finished, the specimens may be changed. Using the correct procedure, shut down the machine. Disconnect and remove the bellows assembly. Loosen the column clamps and lower the crossbeam assembly. The rod will be retained in the collet. Remove the ball cage and balls and the upper bearing holder. To remove the rod, use the C-spanner and the modified spanner to loosen the nut. Remove the R-clip from the locking pin. Using the specimen extract tool, gently tap the locking pin to release it. Remove the locking pin and take off the nut and collet hold. The rod and the collet will remain in the shaft. Use the specimen extract tool and the C-spanner to push out the rod and collet. Once removed, the collet will slide off the rod. In order to remove the bearing race and bearing holder from the lower bearing carrier, use the 3 grub screws on the rear of the bearing carrier to push out the holder. In order to remove the bearing race from the bearing holder, insert the 3 cap head screws into the rear of the bearing holder. Tighten the screws equally until the bearing race is pushed out of the holder. The replacement bearing race will require pressing into the bearing holder. To do this, you will need the holder, the replacement bearing race, and a tube of the same diameter, as well as a hydraulic press. Press the bearing race into the holder until it is fully seated. Finally, the bearing race in the bearing holder is inserted into the lower bearing carrier. The procedure is repeated for the upper bearing carrier.